I am Slick Nick. Let's have yet another conversation about t-shirt sizes because I think this is very interesting and relevant, and we don't have a lot of people having these conversations. So today I was at the gym, as I am most mornings, and I had this epiphany. So think of it like this. We all know I'm 5'9". We all know I now wear size medium, and we all know that back when I wore size large, not only did I have more body fat, but I looked sloppy because it was bigger than it really needed to be. It was big basically because I needed something to cover my stomach so it wouldn't bulge out wearing a t-shirt. So now it fits better because I'm a size smaller, not only in my body, but also my shirt size. So here's what I was thinking though. I've shared my theory before about how most men in America would look best in a size medium shirt if they are slim enough to fit in one, if their stomach will fit in without it bulging out. And my theory is, when it comes down to it, I'm basically the average size man. Like when and I learned this at Walt Disney World in high school, when they build their rides, they build it for a man who's 5'10" and like 170 pounds. So I'm so close to that average. So that's what they do. When a lot of vehicles, they base on a man being 5'9" or 10. So like even a third row seat in an SUV where you can have to be like this. Well, guess what? I can fit in that. And there's about that much room. But if you're much taller than me, it wouldn't be that comfortable. Well, I'm basically that model human being size. So taking that concept, what I'm presenting, as I have before, that size medium looks best on most men, considering that most men are not taller than 5'11". Most men are closer, when you average it, to my size. So this concept, everybody wants to be 6 foot tall if you're a guy. Well, most of us are not. That's the reality of it. Most men are going to be around 5'9", 5'10 and a half, right there. So my dad, though, is interesting because he's 5'11", I guess maybe even at one point closer to 6 foot. But what's funny is a lot of my large shirts, this weekend I saw him and I gave him a lot of my large shirts. Well, they look great on him, but they look bad on me. And now, he's slim, but it's just that he is a little bit taller, so it makes more sense and looks better on him. But when we look at that gradient, and I want to use this as an example, I think this is the best way to explain it. So I grew up in a town called Fort Payne, Alabama. And it's not far from the line as far as the time zones, okay? So just less than an hour away was Chattanooga, Tennessee. So in theory, where I grew up was kind of like a suburb, outskirts of Chattanooga, Tennessee, because that's where you'd have to go to the mall. You'd have to drive nearly an hour to go there, cross the state lines, and cross the time zone. Think of it this way. So here's the time zone, and here's Chattanooga, Tennessee, and here's Fort Payne, Alabama. They're less than an hour apart. However, in the summers, you'd have more sunlight if you were in Chattanooga because they were an hour ahead of us, but the days were longer. But then just 45-minute drive away was Fort Payne, Alabama on the other side of that. So in other words, we got the shortest days. And it'd be similar to if you were in El Paso, Texas. El Paso, Texas, mountain time zone, that's basically where it begins, you'll have more sunlight. But if you're just a little bit east of El Paso, then you'll get shorter nights. So if you can follow that concept there, it's going to be the same thing to some degree with your height and what size shirt you wear. So for example, let's say I had this size torso, but I was 6 foot tall. Well, I'd be really thin for that height, and it could be that this t-shirt, which is this is a Fruit of the Loom platinum shirt here. For me, this is just the perfect shirt. It's not too short, it's not too long. But if I were 6 foot tall, then we'd be in a situation where it's coming up to here. Or if I were a bit shorter, maybe this would look like a dress. So we do have to consider that our height has a lot to do with that as well, as far as that goes. But ultimately, I think being the average size man, I think I happen to be in a pretty good situation because a size medium, the average size medium, by default is probably going to look pretty good on me. Sometimes they fit a little bit more snug, and sometimes they would look a little bit closer to a large, but for the most part, I am the perfectly sized medium man, and I can use that to my advantage. So when I was at the gym, here's what I was thinking about. And I've read this, in Men's Journal, Men's Health, magazines like that, where they had talked about how somebody like me doesn't have to try that hard to look thin and toned. And I use that to my advantage. I've said before, leg day is very important to me. I never skip a leg day. In fact, I incorporate leg day into every single workout. Even if I don't go to the gym, I'm still walking a couple miles. So working my leg muscle is very important to me. So I never need to be the guy that has these huge muscles and huge chest. As long as I'm slim and I'm fit, that's all I actually care about as far as all of that goes. So it's in theory easier for me to look good without having to do as much effort. The downside of that is body fat shows up easier on someone like me. So all you have to do is go back to my videos from 2020 and before I made this body transformation, and you can see that back then I did weigh 20 pounds more, and it was all fat, not protein, not muscle. But you can tell that it doesn't take as much fat on someone my frame before it really shows up. So what I'm saying is, it's easier for me to look heavy with fat, and it's easy for me to look slimmer without it. But if you're taller, it shows up a lot easier. So there are pros and cons of being this size. So again, if you're about 5'9", your body fat's going to show up more obviously so, and you're going to probably notice it more in your clothes than if you were someone who was taller. But the good thing is that you probably don't have to work as hard as far as your physique. It's pretty easy to look slim because that will show up as well. So it's kind of the best and worst things about being this size. But for me, because I'm not big anywhere, I can just be consistently the same and I'm happy. What I would never want to be is like the guys at the gym, huge bowling balls for arms, but then you look at the legs and they're sticks. And I've mentioned this before in other videos, that so many guys who are known for having muscles, you look at their legs, even in movies, like Stallone is a prime example of this. Stallone, an action star, boxer, he's all up here, and then he's got little stick legs that you never see. Compare that to Arnold Schwarzenegger, an actual bodybuilder. He had the complete package going on, and he never skipped leg day, and that was very obvious. So for me, I'm doing kind of the opposite of, I'm following the concept of Arnold Schwarzenegger, just without the huge overall muscle mass. I'd rather be consistent. Even if I look like kind of a small guy, I would rather do that because ultimately I'm fit, and you can't fake being fit for the most part. It's something that requires that discipline. Your comments belong right here.